normally the intro part of the podcast, it says, "Welcome to Who's Your Band." I'm Paul, joined by my co-host, Sean Morton. It's not going to be said tonight because I am taking the lead on this one because my co-host is out doing something that is more important to him than this podcast. So he will be here in about a half an hour. But my co-host for the next half hour, let me just tell you something. Number one, good friend of mine. Number two, way better looking than Jeff. Number three, never been on stage doing comedy, funnier than Jeff. Number four, amazing, amazing singer, one of my dearest friends in the world, my dear friend Cassidy.
It's so good to see you. You look outstanding, like
Hey,
shockingly amazing. How
thanks.
do you feel? Do you feel great?
This was part of a joke that I did, and I took it out, and it's a legit thing. People will always say, "How do you feel?" No, I'm in more pain than I've ever been in my entire life because no matter what, no matter what, I'm 48. I'm
I
48, so
know. And I'll tell you right now,
so
being skinny makes you achy, doesn't it?
everything hurts.
I know.
I have parts of me that I just found, like different muscles in my knees and my calves that they just decided to like, hey, let's just start giving him pain every day of his
Well,
life.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
But no, it's a big difference. It's fun though.
yeah.
It's very, very different. It's
Do
very
you
different.
have that panic? Because I know, so listen, it's relative, right? What somebody considers like they have to lose weight and they don't have to lose weight. I struggled with my weight, not to the same degree, but when I was in, I would say my 20s and 30s, especially, I would say my high weight, like I'm 5'3", so I was probably 40, maybe 44 to 45 pounds heavier than I am now.
You're a twig. You're tiny.
Yeah, yeah. Now I'm really small. Like now for me, I'm actually more skinny than I've ever been. And it's weird because it's like the older I get, the skinnier I get, which it's usually the complete opposite. Like women do the opposite, but I'm sort of going through like, all the things hormonally that women go through as you get older, but I'm getting skinnier, which is so bizarre. But when I was heavier, I was going to say, I remember I would lose the weight and there would be always like a fear that it was going to come back. Like I always had that in the back of my head that I was worried all the time. And I don't know if that's just like a chick thing or if that's something that do you think about that? Does that
No, I've spent about $15,000 in the past year on a fucking new wardrobe. So I am terrified of gaining 2 pounds, let alone
right? So
10,
you're
because
on it. So you're like
I
weighing
would
yourself and like you're on it.
I weigh myself 7 times a day. I'm like in the morning, and then like I'll take a pee and I'll weigh myself again. Then I'll have coffee, and then before I go to work, I'll weigh myself again. Then I come
Oh
home
my
and
God.
it's
Okay. So you're like obsessed. Okay.
it's not pleasant. It's
No.
really not. But
And you driving your wife nuts?
yes. Oh, well, that's in general. That's just in general. Yeah, but for me, like you were talking about, just having that little bit of a difference. For me, I've never been this size. Like I was heavier freshman year of high school than I am now.
Wow.
So I went from 460 to 250. So it's like it was a big jump. It was a big difference, but
Unbelievable. I mean, it's just
yeah.
it's such a beautiful thing. It's such an inspiration because so many people struggle and can't do it. It's so hard. And then when you think about, I've known so many people who've struggled, and there's always that thing of like they don't want to start because it feels so insurmountable. It's just to the when you're talking about 200 pounds, right? And you're going to start, it's like, all right, it's great. I lost 8 ounces. I lost 4 pounds. It's like, 995 to go or 195 to go. It's like, it's overwhelming. And it keeps people from getting on that path. So I'm just super proud of you that you did that and that you stuck with it. Was there something specific that happened? I don't know. We didn't talk about it. Was there like a
Oh
health
yeah,
thing or?
yeah. Well, I'll tell you. I mean, I think I mentioned it once or twice on the show, but I went to see Springsteen. It was April 14th of 2023. Spent ridiculous amount of money on tickets. I had first row in the 100 section at Prudential, so I'm right alongside the stage. I'm watching the show. I'm texting one of my best friends. We're having a great time. We're bullshitting, blah blah blah. And then the next morning, I got like a phone call that he dropped dead of a heart attack that morning. My age, a week younger than me. So I was just kind of like, okay. I mean, and again, guy's in great shape. He was a cop, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Went to the wake, and then it was just one of those
Oh
things.
my
I saw
God.
one of my
Oh
dearest
my
friends
God.
in the casket, and I looked down, And honey, it just went like that. The key just turned. And I said, I'm never going to have my friends have to go through that.
Yeah.
And the next day, I just went outside and I walked. So, like, I moved into I don't say it the country because you live in the country, but
Yeah.
like, compared to where I used to live, it's the country, you know? So, I mapped out a little path behind my house. It's like 3 miles. If I do it twice, it's like 5 miles if I do it three times. And I just started walking one day. And it was just one day. And then one day turned to the next. And it's one of the jokes I'm doing on stage. It was from April 15th to April 15th. I did 1,702 miles.
Wow.
A
So
lot,
you
you know.
just started walking and that was it. And that was sort of the beginning.
Yeah, that was it. Started watching when I eat, and that was it.
I
Never
just
turned back.
can't believe it. It's just incredible. It's like it really is all it takes. And people make it more complicated than that. I had a girlfriend that was really very overweight, probably about 400 pounds or close. And she was brilliant and wonderful and had everything in the world going for her. But she used to say, I'll go back to the gym, but first I have to lose a little bit of weight and then I'll go
Right.
back to like there was always this like there were always these excuses for like when she was gonna she needed this to happen before she could do that before she could do that. Just walk out your front door
Yeah.
and walk to the end of the block and walk back to that. That's it.
Yeah, I agree.
Right? You start there.
The cool thing is I inspired one of my friends, and he's gotten back into his health, and there's another one that we were trying to work on. And like you can't lead a horse to water. Like you can't just tell people like how your success happens and that it's going to be the same for them. But
Right.
like you also got to be honest with yourself. Like my one friend's like, oh, I'm losing all, you're losing all the weight. You're doing all the work, and I do the same thing. I don't sit at a desk all day. I'm moving around. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. I'm like, well, look, everybody's body's different. And then the next sentence, oh, you went to Philly. Did you get the new Hearst potato chips? No, I didn't get them. Oh, I bought all 5 bags. I had to buy at least 2 bags of each. Well, there's 10 bags of potato chips that you just shoved down your fat face, and that's the reason
Right.
why it ain't coming off, you know. But yeah,
Right.
I've slacked a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, I've slacked a little bit, but it's bound to happen.
Well, it's normal. You have to live your life too, right? You don't want to be obsessed.
Yeah.
It's finding that normalcy, that balance, and finding a place where you can be normal and not be like every single thing you have to panic about what puts in your mouth. But you just don't ever want to get back to where it was. That's all. It's just figuring out how to live like a normal person.
Yeah, I wasn't a drinker, and I quit smoking. I quit all that shit,
Oh,
and
amazing.
so yeah, it's been fun. It's been fun since the last time we've hung out. But we have not seen each other in a few years actually. The last time I saw you was doing one of those outdoor quarantine shows up
Yes.
in Sparta, which was great. But how have you recovered since the world shut down? Like even just like not even mentally, but like more um I would say socially as far as your careers are going,
Yeah,
because you kind of are all over the map, which I love
I
about it.
am.
I
I
think it's a
am.
great thing. But
So
you have your hands on a bunch of different things, and how did it really affect you to get back into
yeah.
the
Yeah.
things?
Yeah. It's funny because this has been a conversation lately for me. The fact that I all but totally left the music business, like just completely walked away from it. And it's been very difficult, more so for the people in my life than me necessarily. And the reason I say it that way is because it's hard, I think, when people like your work or they're proud of you or they're excited, by the things that you've done in your career to sort of watch you say that you don't love it anymore and that you don't want to do it anymore. And it doesn't make a lot of sense. And I get that. And I have a lot of guilt and a lot of I feel like a lot of explaining to do. And so, you know, for pretty much everybody who does not know who I am, because nobody knows who I am. I was in a band and we were very successful and it was awesome. And we had a lot of fun and I wrote a lot of songs and I met a lot of people and I lived out my dreams. But when I left my band, it's been sort of a process for me. I was writing on my own and I was doing, trying to just experimenting with music. Like I needed a change. I needed to feel inspired. I needed to feel like I wasn't going to be doing the same like the girls in my band Antigone Rising have literally been Antigone Rising for like 40 years, like for their whole lives. And I'm not even trying to put them down. I just don't know how they do that. Like I don't get that. I have done 500,000 things before I was in that band and then after I left that band, just because I think of the kind of artist that I am. I've always been an actor. I've always been a writer. I've always been interested in filmmaking. I've always been a painter and I make jewelry and I love gardening. And for me, I just wherever the inspiration is, I sort of go. So I did the music for a while when I left the band and I wrote and I was successful with that. I got very lucky. I got songs placed on some really big records and some into really big films. And a lot of that, money still comes in. It's just, by nature of how the industry works, you get royalties and stuff. So, but I was never one to like, oh, I just got a huge song on a huge record. I've got to do that again. And I've got to do that again. And I've got to do that again. It's not to say that I'm not ambitious. I'm just not competitive in that way. Like, I don't need people to be like, she's so rich, like for me to feel like I'm worthy to be on this planet, or for people to like look at me like with some kind of envy for the house I'm living in or the car I'm driving. Like, I've never been that way. So, while I've really loved and enjoyed this success and it's been beautiful and it's been a blessing and I'm so grateful, it hasn't necessarily been the motivation, right? So what motivates me are the things that I find exciting, that I find interesting. I did a podcast for a while with the people that you do this podcast with Adam. And that was really fun and really exciting. And some of those episodes did really well. But even that, it was just like, okay, now what? So to go to your question, it's like the pandemic came, and for particularly for my partner at the time, he had never been in a situation where suddenly he was being told he can't do what he wants to do. Whereas my whole life has been about that. Like, right, like I've always been either broke or like trying to figure it out, or and then when I was successful, like I can live on a shoestring and I can adjust and I can be. So for me, it was found time. Like, I started a podcast. I started like doing Ask Cassidy or not Ask Cassidy. I did a Happy Hour with Cassidy, where I was having some friends come on and we were doing interviews. I did the true crime podcast. I wrote songs. I made a record. For better or for worse, I made a record, and it was really more just to keep me busy. I like being creative, and I like being stimulated, and I like feeling challenged, and I like learning things. So what I knew I didn't want to do was go back on the road. I was really over that. Antigone really took it out of me. It was 250 shows a year for years and years and years. I gave up everything. I didn't get married. I didn't have kids, which is all fine and choices that I made. But you get to a certain age and you realize, you've got no roots and you've just got no direct, you're sort of rudderless, and the only thing that you have is the music and the fame. And I think that you're seeing this now we're getting such a microscope is really being put on the music business, especially right now, when you will see what people are willing to do to get next to fame or to get into, you know, to get an opportunity. And I'm not blaming victims. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying, but you can sense when there's like a dangerous deal, when you're like, that doesn't feel safe, like that party feels a little wild, or that dude feels like he's like looking at me like I'm lunch, or dinner or whatever.
Yeah, and it's worse for women too. I mean, even with comedy, I mean, I always prided myself with the fact that I was raised by two women, my mom and my
Ooh,
grandmother. So I have the mentality of just treating women a little differently.
yeah.
So when it came with comedy, the two people who really took me under their wing were women. So for me, I always like to, whenever I produce a show or I book a show, I always have a female on the show.
I love it.
And like my host is one of my best friends in the world. She's a great comic, but I hear stories. I mean some horrible shit
Bro.
from and I'm talking about low level. I don't mean that in a bad way.
No,
Low
I know what
level
you're saying. It happens on
comedian
all levels. Yeah.
a low level comedian booker like, hey, listen, I'll give you this spot if you blow me next week. Like that's like you would
Literally.
never you would literally like that.
Yeah.
It's horrific, and I can't imagine on another level. Like
It's
even on the oh great the fucking show was going great. There was no lapse. I'm like, oh, maybe this jerk will be late. You told me 8:30,
hello.
fucking 15 minutes early.
Hello, Cassidy. How are you?
Yeah, nice to see you.
Good to be seen. How's my good friend Sean Morton?
So happy to see you, as you can tell. Thrilled to see you.
Good. They lost. They lost. Good for you, Sean. You know what bothers me, Cassidy?
Tell me.
I'm looking. I open up my Facebook. Yeah, I have to post shows, and the first thing that pops up is this dumb fucking picture of Sean Morton. He looks. He I hate this. I hate to say this. He looked good in this picture. He's wearing like a black leather jacket. His
You
hair
know
is
where
all,
that was taken,
He looks
Jeffrey.
like a badass. I know the photo.
yeah,
You
but
know
in
where
real
it was
life, he's a
taken.
baby Yui. Stop it.
It was the night that of my taping, with the night that you actually, and I fucking hate saying this, were really good that night.
Well, thank you.
Like you
Oh.
didn't, yeah. Oh God,
You
like
were
that's how good.
supportive, and it's painful for you to say it. I love
Yeah,
that.
it's really
Like
bad because
brotherhood.
he's genuinely garbage. But that night, like it was a great litmus test for me to hear like the audience when I had Jeff on there, because normally if Jeff really opens for me a lot because I'm more of a headliner than he is. So when we go on the road and stuff like that, I can judge. I'm like, oh, if they're not grown, they're not saying anything, then it's a normal Jeff
That's a normal, right? Right.
normal Jeff said. But they were just screaming and hooting and hollering. I'm like, well,
They're in
I
a good mood. Don't you
yeah,
love
it's
that?
not
You can
him.
Yeah.
It's
tell.
definitely not him. So
Ah!
the crowd was going to be good for
Oh,
me.
don't
So
let him
Yeah,
talk to you like
yeah.
that.
That's why. I'm used to this, Cassidy. I'm used to it. This is like 4.5 years of this nonsense with this guy. Every time I think I have an exit plan, it just doesn't come to fruition. Sometimes, sometimes you got to just believe in the fate, and the fate,
Yes. It's
we're
the
stuck with it.
tension that works. It's like sometimes you got to hate each other. We were just talking about my former band, and I think what made it work was the fact that we hated each other. I really, and nobody knew that. I'm actually writing my book. I was saying about it now, and I'm going to be saying a lot of things that people didn't know. Like people didn't know that we didn't get along, but it made the music great.
And
It
that
did.
band was Antigone Rising.
Yeah.
yep.
That's right. And so I don't know if Sean brought it up yet, but it was like when he told me that you were coming on the show, I thought you would be perfect to ask this about. Did you catch the incident that happened with Perry Farrell and Dave Navarro from
I
Jane's Addiction?
did. And I had a moment about it because it's funny. Yes. And I have thoughts if you're curious at all what I thought
Yes.
about that.
That's why we asked you,
Okay.
Cassidy. Don't make
So
me come
yes.
over there and pull your hair out. Let's
So
go.
so so first of all, I will start by saying that we were, fans, of course, right? Of who wasn't, because that was my generation. It was Jane's
Pure
Addiction,
90s.
Pearl Jam, and right. So that
Yeah,
was
pure
that
90s.
was my era. I posted Eddie Vedder today, which I haven't done in years, but I was a huge fan. And so, that whole time period, that whole, and I was living in Los Angeles during that time period. So, so young. Really, I was living in New Jersey first, and we used to go to these great dance clubs, and we loved those bands, and we expected them to be sort of raucous and crazy, and we knew that they were doing drugs, and he was writing songs about that. So Perry Farrell was like a wild man. What surprised me about it was that at his age, because he's in his 60s now, that
He looks great, though,
he
doesn't he?
looks amazing, and they all do. And Dave really looks amazing. I mean, Dave looks like a kid. He's aged so well.
He's not in his 60s, is he?
No, well, he's older than
Close.
me. I would say he's older than me. He's definitely in his 50s. I would say mid
Is
50s.
that his real hair?
I think he probably dyes it, but I don't. I think it's his
Looks
hair. I think he
Dave
probably
Navarro
dyes
is
it.
57 years old.
I know. Look at the shit me and you have to deal with here, Sean. Look at this.
But
Can you
Um,
believe it? He
Dave
looks
Jeff,
Navarro
so
does
good.
look great. They both do look
I
great.
know, right? Sean's like, speak for yourself. Speak for yourself. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
So, what I was going to say is, when I saw it, it reminded me of my band. And
hmm,
I know, and when I found out why it happened, it made even more sense, because really what it was that Dave was playing too loud, and it was driving Perry crazy.
And just something like that would set off a singer.
I think that you would be surprised, because here's what it is. That's not the first. I'm not speaking for him. I'm just telling you, this is what I think. That's not the first time it happened. It's not the second time. It's not even the third time it happened. It's something that keeps coming up. It's something that he's continued to ask him to turn down, that he can't hear himself. Now, here's Dave's point of view. You're an old motherfucker. You can't hear. Turn up your hearing aid. I'm not that loud. Stop being a fucking diva. Stand on your side of the stage. So, in other words, they're both right. I'm not even trying to say Perry's right, Dave's wrong, or Dave's right, Perry's wrong. But this is something they've already clashed about. This is something that's already gone on stage between them in rehearsal and everything. Turn your guitar down, turn your guitar. I can't hear myself. I can't. Now, if you were to ask me what my instinct is, my instinct, just based on quasi knowing Dave, I've met him a handful of times, knowing a little bit about his background and knowing enough about Perry. Perry's the diva. Perry's the pain in the ass. Perry is the one that's a little great talent, I'm sure a good hang when he wants to be. But I think he's touched, and I think that he can't roll with it. I think he needs what he needs in order for it to be like, for him to do this thing. And if it's not like, if the air isn't like blowing in the direction he needs it to blow, he can't do a good show. That's the sense that I get. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm sensing.
No, I don't think you're wrong. And the reason why, hold on a second, Sean. I just, just might get this thought out because he was in a band called Porno for Pyros.
Yes.
And his ex-bandmates came out and basically said the same thing you just said.
Did they? See, I
Yes.
didn't know that. That was just my instinct. Yeah, that's interesting.
I'll tell you one thing and people think that I'm a dick when I say this because I'm just trying to speak the truth here.
Truth to power.
Nowadays, now me and Cassie are from the same age group. Okay, when we were growing up, we did not hear of the word autism. We had no autistic kids in our generation. Now
Right.
it's very, very big. But now what you're seeing now is people that are our generation and a little bit older acting a little fucked up. And I'm just starting to think to myself, are these people just undiagnosed on the spectrum?
Right. Not good in social situations. Listen, bands in general, we're outcasts. A lot of us are like these mismatched people with, quirks and couldn't really hold a corporate job down, wouldn't have, managed very well in polite society. And we're all thrown into these creative projects together. And the fact that any of them work, the fact that any of those bands or those groups or those that they don't all kill each other every single time, I feel like is a miracle. So when you see that it works, it's amazing, but that it's tough. You've got all these very strange personalities together trying to create music, and everybody needs listen. By the time I got off the road, it was like so hard because you can't control your environment at all. You're in a different place every single night, and it's just so unsettling and so traumatizing. You're constantly being uprooted. So you start to try to control the minutia, the things that you feel like you can, and that'll be your bandmates, or that'll be the people that work for you, or that'll be, the venue and the drink that they made you, or the food that they made you. You become really picayune, like they say in New Jersey, and real picayune about the stupid little shit because the macro you can't control. You're totally out of control on a constant basis. And you become really kind of horrible to be around because of it, but it's common,
Do you stay away? Do you stay away from the bandmates until the show? And if you do, how do you do it? And then the other thing is, does it kind of then take away from the creative process? Because I was listening to a story about how the song Paradise City came about. And it came about like when the band was just like, they didn't have the first album out yet, obviously. And they were just like a band that was driving around in a van, and like, the camaraderie, and they all kind of had like acoustic guitars while someone was driving, and they came up and they started playing Paradise City, and the chorus was supposed to be where the girls are fat and they had big titties. Okay, that was I think Slash's input, and like I think Axl kind of overruled it, and
to get it on the radio, right?
with the
Why
real
not?
lyric,
Yeah,
right? But it was just supposed to be just like a fun song. So to get to your point about like okay, everyone gets on each other's nerves, and like you try to control. Do you stay away? And if you do, does it eventually wind up hurting the band?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So I'll give you an example. Aerosmith came in on separate buses. They came in on separate buses. Allman Brothers came in on separate buses. I don't know that the Allmans didn't get along. I think it was mostly because at that point Greg was sober and he had a dry tour, and it was very important that he sort of have what he when he would come in, and they were all great. But like Aerosmith, you definitely, the way that we understood it, they were on separate buses because they weren't talking to each other, right? And
Van
so,
Halen did that too in the 90s, and the band was basically broken up into two camps. I just got finished reading Sammy's biography, and he
yeah,
says exactly that. There
yep,
was there was the Van Halen bus, and then there was the Michael Anthony and Sammy
100%.
bus.
100%. And when you've got that kind of money, right? It's like Joe's coming in on one and Steven's coming in on one, and they're all coming on a different buses. They're lovely to us individually. There's no drama. You don't see fighting. There's none of that. But clearly, this is what I think. It hurt us in that ultimately we couldn't work together anymore, and we just couldn't agree, we couldn't get along, there was too much. I mean, and listen, there's their side, there's my side. Everybody has an individual story about what went on there, and everybody will or won't tell their story in due time. But at the end of the day, does it hurt the music? Yeah, it really can. But I've always been very kind of, well, impressed, I guess, or just I've marveled at bands who can continue to write records together, even though they clearly don't get along. So when you see a band like Aerosmith stay together, how do they stay together when they don't get along? They don't talk to each other. It just
Do you
doesn't.
think it's the money that kind of like keeps them together?
I do. And I think, listen, had I stayed in Antigone, we'd still, they kept doing it. And frankly, they've never been as good. And I'm not just saying that, it's just the truth. I mean, we had chemistry, we had an alchemy that made that band work. Had we been able to like look past all of that and make it about the band, there probably would have continued to be money in it for all of us. I definitely know that once you're the Stones or you're Aerosmith, you're not really playing the new stuff, right? You're going out there for the old ragdoll and the old music. They want to hear, Dream On. They want to hear. So if you don't have to write music and you don't have to make records, you're just coming from like 5 different locations. You're going to play the hits on stage, and you're going to collect, your 500 grand a night or 300 grand a night or whatever it is you're making. And you're going to go to the next city. Sure, right? Why not? Like, if that was the deal for me, if I was offered something like that, I would do it. But in terms of being able to make new albums and really reinvent yourself when you don't get along, like, I don't know. I don't see how they do that. I have no idea. We certainly couldn't. We couldn't even agree.
What do you think of a band like Godsmack, who is still pretty on top of their game in the hard rock field? They announced that they're done. They're done recording. They're never going to record another song ever again, but they're going to do greatest hits tours every single year.
I think probably, and I get it. I think in a lot of ways they're doing that because they know people aren't buying the new music. They don't care about it. They realize that they've built something that's enough to fill stadiums or to fill theaters or whatever it is that they're doing, and to make money and to tour, but they want the old music. They're not in a position where they can still make new music and people are going to give a shit about the new music. Some of that is Godsmack, and some of that's just the industry and the way that the industry has changed. People are not interested in albums anymore in the way that they were, right? They want hit songs, they want what's the latest. I mean, look, music sucks. I mean, it sucks. And these are all fabricated, entities. These stars are fabricated stars. They're actors. They're not even really that talented. So real talent even is at a premium. I mean, you don't even have it anymore. So nowadays it's about packaging. It's about what's the latest. What can the record label make the most money off of, one song or 2 songs, or and then we'll move you into this area and we'll have you do a big performance, and we'll create controversy in your life, and that'll generate more money. And there's only a few artists that are really writing new music on a constant basis. But a band like Godsmack, it's like Matchbox 20 is another example, right? How many new albums are they really selling? At the end of the day, though, they can still tour and they can still play whatever they're playing, whether it's arena. I don't know exactly kind of the.
They're playing arenas. They're
Are they
playing like
playing arena?
yeah, they just played Prudential.
It does not surprise me. So they're in arenas, but he's playing 3 a.m.
They're playing 3 a.m. They're playing Ben. Sean, you want to hear my impression of Mick Jagger doing what Cassie was just talking about?
I would very much like to
Okay.
hear.
We're going to do something off of Rickety Diamonds. And now the whole audience starts to go to the bathroom.
Exactly. Exactly. And as a matter of fact, when we toured with Aerosmith, I almost think it was one of the last times that they were able to do a new album with new music. It was called
When was that?
Honkin' on Bobo.
Oh, was that the last?
That was the blues album. Remember the blues album?
Yeah,
Yeah.
second to the last album. I think that
We
was the
did
one I
that
heard.
tour. We did that tour with them. And
Of
yeah, you know what I mean? But they, of course, they played all the old stuff too.
course, you have to.
Right. And to be fair, the album was not terrible. It really wasn't. It wasn't a bad album. It really wasn't a bad album, but it's just not what we want. We
I
want
don't want to hear the new stuff if you're gonna leave off Mama Kim.
That's what I want. Accidental murder. That's what I want. I want same old story, same
Oh, great
old
song.
song and dance, my
Yes.
friend.
But instead, they're gonna do like the third cut off of the new album.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
nobody wants that.
Nobody
But you know,
wants that.
even the Almonds, when we went out with them, they did, what was the name of that album with like Desdemona and the High Cost of Low Living? That was the album. That was a great album.
And that was an Allman Brothers album? Or was it
That was Allman Brothers. That was the tour we went on. And that band was O'Teal Burberry, Derek Trucks, the guy from Government Mule, Warren Haynes,
all great musicians.
Greg
right
Allman. I mean, it was like that band was sick. And they were coming out and sitting in
Was
with
Dickie
us.
Betts in the band?
Dickie was gone by then, dead by
Mm.
then, I believe. Yeah. Yeah. He had passed away, I think.
What do you think now that you've seen their whole career? How do you feel about Oasis coming
Sean,
back?
you're reading my mind.
Do you
So
think it's a love of the music, or do you think Liam and Noel are like, well, one tour and we're set for the rest of our lives?
Bro, they are so cynical. I don't think anything that they do is about the love of the music. That
Right.
said, I think they love the music, right? And I think that they are purists, and I think that they're very incredibly talented. It's funny about them because, and you know, I don't know what I'll just say it. I don't love how fucking nasty they are about everything and everyone. I just don't think it's necessary. It kind of bugs me. It turns me off about them. Like, you're certainly entitled to your opinion. And I certainly don't think that you have to be nice if you don't like a band or a song, or if you're not into it. Like, tell the truth. Okay, cool. Like, I can get behind that. But sometimes I feel like they're kind of nasty for nasty's sake. And it's
Yeah.
become his shtick, particularly Noel. And I personally don't dig it. Like, I just, every time I want to watch him because I'm so curious, because I think he's brilliant and I think that he's written some really beautiful music. And I really agree with him when he talks about how shite, you know, the landscape is now. But like, he's just got to be so mean, and it's like, I don't want to listen to it. Like, why are you such a dick? Like, don't be such a dick.
Well, a lot of people are the same way with, like, bands like Springsteen or Rage Against the Machine. Like, they used to love them, but since they're talking about their political views on stage all the time, or Roger
Well,
Waters,
yeah.
like a lot of my right-wing friends won't go see them, even though they have spent their whole lives listening to them and loving them.
You got to
Sometimes,
separate the politics and the music.
yeah,
Because it
I
kind of
agree with
bugs
that.
me too. I don't love it. I don't. Well, first of all, there's something really suspicious about the fact that everybody who's famous pretty much is on the government side. I mean, when did that happen? When did it happen that rock and roll artists are now supporting and defending the government to
the machine? It's right. Exactly.
It's bizarre. Like, that's not punk rock, dude. That's not punk rock. It's not punk
100%
rock to
right.
agree with every single thing that the government and that mainstream media is saying to you. What's going on here? That's not the rock and roll I grew up on. And listen, I would be lying if I said that didn't play a part in why I walked away. Not so much because I'm like, oh, I'm so right wing and everybody's going to hate me if they find that out about me. It's not necessarily that. It's the fact that I don't feel like I can say what the fuck I want to say and be considered punk rock and cool and obvious, because it's going to be controversial what I say, because I'm in a rock band. Like,
That's the reason why you should love Noel Gallagher, because he doesn't give a fuck.
And I do when he's right, but I think sometimes he does it just to be nasty. Like, you can almost see it on his face. Like, he thinks people expect it from him. So he says things that are, the British have a saying, they'll go, any need, meaning like, was there any need for that? Sometimes I feel like that with him. Like that, it's almost like he tries too hard to be a dick. And it's not necessary. If it makes sense and if like it was warranted, then okay, cool. I'm with you.
No, I have a co-host exactly like that. So I understand. No, I understand what Liam is going through. I'm the Liam of the group, by the way.
Not my friend Sean, who's always so sweet to me.
There's a big difference. Well, to you, yeah, not to this fucking piece of shit.
You see,
So
you
here's
see
another
that?
question. So here's another thing, Jeff. I don't know if you know
Wait,
this.
I'm gonna talk with my hands behind my back, like Liam. Go ahead.
Yes, 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 yes.
Yes, that's
Oh,
so cool, like
he's a
this.
twat.
no, I'm
He's
just
a twat.
I'm spinning my chair.
Yeah, meanwhile, my
So
shoulder's hurting now. Go ahead.
you know how like me and you will send things back and forth to each other like on Instagram or whatever, and usually it's about like, hey, if you open this, you're gay, because that's the mentality.
I sent them that to him, by the way.
Do, right. So like, you have certain friends. Like you have certain friends for certain things. Like I have one friend, she's a great comic, Jess Sager. She all day long we either text or message pictures about our dogs. It's all about pit
Oh,
bulls, whatever. That's all we do. Then
yeah.
you have like, your one friend who's always going to send you the big ass Brazilian girl pictures and all that
Yeah.
stuff, whatever. Then you have the friends that you can send the bad shit to, like the fucked up shit. And then like, and I'd send some music stuff to Cassie once in a
Wait,
while. And then
can you give more examples, Sean? Who are
so
you?
hold
Ice
on.
T?
All right, hold on. So, you know, I didn't, if I sent like a song to my friend, oh my God, this is a great song. That relationship has now blossomed to where she now is the fucked up friend who sends me. So like, you expect like, oh, here's a video of somebody playing volleyball and they're holding up like an amputee and hitting the ball with that,
Right.
hitting the
My
amputee. And I'm like,
favorite.
oh wow, why did Anthony send me that? And I'm like, oh no, Cassidy sent that to me. That's fucked up. So we went to that next
He's
level.
now graduated to the next
Yes, it's
level.
fucking fantastic.
And there
But
aren't that many people that I can show that my sister one, but my sense of humor too, like that. I have it. One of my sisters, she and I go back and forth with some pretty sick shit. But to me, there's a very specific kind of sense of humor that I have, and not everybody has it. And I think maybe also being in the public eye, you learn to like curb some of that. You want to be careful.
sure.
You don't want to offend. You don't want people to be disappointed in the things that you find funny. Um, so it was kind of, I just thought, I forget what it was or what was the impetus, but you sent me something or I sent you something like as a test, I think, just to see like, will she laugh
Oh
at
yeah,
me?
yeah, yeah. No, so
Just
today's
like
was
putting a
I
toe
got,
in the water kind of
oh,
thing.
it's
Yeah.
great. So
Yeah.
now it's just pure. It's always like midgets or people falling. It's fantastic.
You're just getting
Today,
like knocked out.
yeah. This is the question I wanted to bring to your attention, Jeff. I already said this to Cassidy before. She sent me a video today of Steve Perry doing open arms. Was it open arms, I believe? Yeah, it was
It
open
was,
arms.
you know how they do those audio where they pull the audio out of
Isolated
the
vocal track.
they
Yes.
isolate the vocal. I sent him that because I think it was open arms, I believe
It,
you're
it was
right.
mind blowing. So
Yeah.
my question to
Oh, so
her
it's
was,
the original. It's not him doing it
yeah,
now.
no, no,
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
no.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
from the late
Yeah,
70s, early
because the
80s.
David Lee Roth one singing "Running with the Devil" with no music is hysterical.
A little well, anything Axel's done in the last 18 months too is pretty atrocious too. But
Seriously,
uh,
he looks like my Aunt Mina.
He does look like a grandma.
He does.
he's like Benny Hill.
He
Jeans.
looks like Tranma.
So Jeff, I said to Cassidy, I think it's no question anybody will argue the fact that Freddie Mercury is the greatest rock singer of all time.
He's in the conversation, that's for
I,
sure.
I, I think I think you have to say he's the number one. Would you say Steve Perry is number two as
No,
far as male rock
no,
singer?
no.
Would you go ahead of him? As
Robert
far
Robert
as
Plant heyday.
Oh.
I mean, the first four albums, even into Houses of the Holy. So I may, and Physical Graffiti. So I mean, Plant was insane. I think. I mean, you know where I'm going to go with this. I think there are a couple of guys. I'm going to go Dickerson, Maiden. I think Jeff Tate, Queensryche. I think Dio.
Dio would be the only one.
And if I'm going to go kind of bluesy, I love Paul Rogers.
Mhm.
And the reason why I say that is because when you see the replacement Steve Algeri, you hear Dean Castronovo, and of course Arnel Pineda, it seems like anyone can do Journey. I mean, it's great. I mean, Steve Perry saved that band. They were about to get dropped from the label, and
Steve
then
Perry was
they
a crooner, right? He's a crooner.
he's
It's
a crooner. He is a
right,
crooner.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, he's a great singer. He's there, but is he number two all time? No, because I'll go. I'll say his name again. Paul Rogers, who is not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is a sin. You know, when you look at what he did with Free, Bad Company, and even a little bit of time in Queen, he's phenomenal. And what about Roger Daltrey?
What do you think about Chris Cornell?
Great singer. Great singer, very, very underrated. I don't think he has the range of the guys I just mentioned, but for what he does, he's great at what he does.
Yeah.
I think you need to listen to an isolated vocal track of Chris Cornell, then rethink what you just said. Because I
No,
think
wait, do you
I
think he
think
could
his range was pretty amazing, but I also
you think
understand
he
like
could
I'm
sing like Dio? Like he could
no.
do a song like Straight Through the Heart?
Listen, there's some people that are just generational talents. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And that's like a Dio and a Freddie Mercury and stuff like that. But as far as Chris Cornell, I think he got not a bad rap, but I think he gets looked over a lot because
He
they were a harder rock band. But when you listen to his solo stuff, man, that guy's voice was
Oh, he's got a
absolutely
great
perfect.
voice. I mean, he without a doubt. But listen. I mean, music is like comedy, like anything. You know, there's so much, and there's
it's
different genres that you
subjective.
like. Right? It's
Yeah.
subjective.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I like the guys who could sing high and hit that note. I love like when you listen to a guy like Jeff Tate, and when you hear him hit that go that extra octave or two in a song like "Take Hold of the Flame." And he does that I mean, a handful of people on the planet could do that. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Steve Perry was amazing. I mean, I'm moved by him, right? In a way that I think a lot of people are, most people
Chris
are.
Cornell, you're talking about?
No, Steve Perry.
Okay.
Um, just moved by him, moved by his voice and the way that he sang and the melodies. But I was also sort of a melodic songwriter, even though we were rock. So for me, I think that's why I was drawn to him because it was about the melodies and it was these beautiful singable melodies for a crooner. He was a crooner, and in a lot of ways I was too, like a crooner. I was a rock singer and my voice became more rock and roll, but before I was in the band and then again after the band, my voice became more kind of croon-y, I guess, if that's an expression. I worked with him. He when I left the band, I made a solo album and I went up to Capitol Records in Los Angeles to have it mixed by a guy named Nico, and Nico knew Steve, and Steve would come in and out of the studio, would come in and out of the building, would hang out. And I wasn't there one day and he was mixing my record and Steve had gone there to visit him and wanted to know, who I was, and was like, I guess, liked the music, really enjoyed it, to the point where he asked to come the next time that I was going to be there. So I didn't know he was going to be there. And I walked into the studio and Nico said, there's somebody here that wants to meet you. And I said, oh, cool. I'm thinking like his daughter or like, I didn't know, somebody, I didn't know. Steve Perry shows up and like is standing in the middle of the room. And I was like, oh my God. I was like, you taught me how to sing. I didn't know what to say. Like, you taught me how to sing. And he goes, no wonder you sound so good, which was hilarious. And then he hugged me and then he asked to sing on the record. So
He
my
sang on
song
your record?
was So Follow the Freedom. I have a song called Follow the Freedom, and he's singing on that record with me.
Wow.
He loved it. And he wanted me,
Wow.
yeah. And he had said to me, I want you to write songs for because he hadn't made an album. He's made one since. I'm bummed because at that time he hadn't done it yet. And he asked me to write for it. And I said that I said, no, I'm busy. I can't write for it. No, I was like, please call me. And he didn't. And I don't know why. And I don't know what happened. And it's okay, obviously. But I really wanted to write songs for him. I just thought that would have been amazing. And I heard a record came out. I haven't heard it. So I'm glad to hear it's good. That's
Few
good.
years ago. I would say a good 6, 7 years ago, I would think, right?
Oh yeah. I mean, because that would have been when I did Follow the Freedom. Yeah. Follow the Freedom was probably, I'm gonna say maybe 2014. I would have met him 14.
So this album came out in 2018, so 6 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it's called
Cassidy, what
Trace.
do you think about the new singer in Linkin Park?
That's interesting. Um, I'm not I'm not that impressed. I know that that's probably a very unpopular thing to say. I think that she's average. Um, I also am not impressed by the fact that she defended Danny Masterson. I think that that's disgusting. She's a Scientologist, and you can be whatever you want to be in this world, but what you don't get to be is like somebody standing in the lobby of a courtroom with women who are talking about their SAs and screaming at them with a group of people to try to harass them and keep them from pressing charges. Ew. Like, I'm sorry.
I didn't know that about her.
Yeah. Like, what
Oh
kind of
yeah, it came out like I think a day or two after they made the announcement.
There was a big uproar about it. His son.
I hate to hear shit like that,
I
man.
know
I
his
really do.
son. What's his name? The former lead singer. I'm blanking. I know his name.
Chester Bennington?
Chester. Chester's son came out and actually spoke about it. He was quite unhappy with it, and I agree. I listen. I don't have any problem that she's Scientologist. To each his own. What do I think of Scientology? I mean, that's a conversation for another day. But if you want to be, I don't care what you want to be. You can be what you want to be. But these women were assaulted by, and it was proven to be so. So I don't have to say allegedly anymore. He's a rapist. He's in prison doing time. And these women came forward, and it's really difficult to do that, to face your rapist in court. And a bunch of Scientologists, with her included, in the very beginning, and at the hearings, at the early hearings, she was there in like solidarity to support Danny Masterson. And I just feel like,
But then how do you feel about Sean, who's a big fan of Diddy?
well, Sean and I have a lot to talk about when it comes
I'm
to
a loop
Diddy. As
salesman.
much
That's
as he
why.
loves Diddy, he's really not into baby oil. So I think that he's changed his mind.
It'd be a lot of fucking baby oil.
This guy is going. I can't wait to see how this really turns out because I think it's either going to go one of two directions. I think a lot of people are going to pay a tremendous amount of money to keep their names sealed and quiet.
He has to pay a price, though.
I think he's not. He ain't going to see trial. You think he's going to see trial? You're out of your mind.
Well, this
What do you
bugs me, though.
what do you
But
think
this is
happened,
what
Sean?
bugs me about it. Because here's the thing about this. Two things. One, we know what happened with Epstein, and we know that the names never came out, and we know why they've never come out, right? They're
Why? He
trying.
committed suicide.
Well, he committed suicide, but here's what's interesting. Okay,
He
but
didn't commit
Ghislaine
suicide.
Maxwell went to prison for basically procuring these women.
Yeah, drug trafficking.
Okay, but to whom? Trafficking to whom? Who were the men? We've never heard this.
I think one may have been a former president of the United States.
Of course. So here's the other thing. So when you get to now Diddy, you've got this amazing Busby, this lawyer who's come out now, and he's going to represent all of these women. And it sounds like because he's not in the back pocket of the government that he might name names. But here's what we know. If everybody pays off these girls, these names are never going to come out. So all of the people that were complicit, all of the people that were involved, it wasn't just Diddy. It was all.
Someone has to have a shred of dignity. Someone has to.
Someone please come forward and talk about who these people were. This is what I want to know. Can somebody just say, you know what? The money's not worth it. I'm going to tell.
Exactly.
I'm going to tell. Because it's
Well,
going to keep happening.
That
It's
happened
gonna
with
keep
Vince
happening.
McMahon from the WWE. He wound up stepping down, and he wound up having this major lawsuit. This girl filed charges against him, and she had an NDA, and she broke the NDA, and she named names.
He's
She
also
was
like in about his 80s right now, so it really, he has really not much to lose by stepping down.
And you know what's interesting too? You say that about being in his 80s. There's something almost sad about attacking someone in their eight. Like you see even Weinstein, like on his cane, or like Cosby's like blind, you know what I mean? And all these people are going to be 100 years old before they go to prison. There's something sort of pathetic about it at that point. Like there's no satisfaction.
It is because you're a decent human being. You have compassion for anybody. Of course, you feel that.
I'm the worst.
And the whole thing is, it's a shame because the whole thing could be avoidable. And why couldn't Diddy be like a decent human being? But he fucked people over, even before he became super famous. When he, I don't know if you guys remember, there was an incident where people got trampled. I think someone died because he promoted a show at City College.
That's right. And then the woman who got shot in the nightclub, and he made somebody else take the fall for that.
Exactly.
Guys went to prison for that.
That's right.
Listen, there are many schools of thought about this. I was at Atlantic Records, so you're hearing a lot of names being thrown around right now, right? And they're not as commonly thrown around in the beginning, but if you're watching and you're paying attention, names like Leor Cohen are being thrown around. Leor was president of my label after about this, like the second half. So the first half it was Jason Flom, and then when Jason left, Leor Cohen came in, and Leor
Jason Flom
Cohen,
was a huge A&R guy.
he signed me. That's who signed me.
Yeah,
So
I mean, Sean, I don't know if you know this guy, but like in the 80s, this was the guy who signed like everyone that came out of
oh,
California.
not just the 80s, it was the 90s and like early aughts.
He also was very prominent in helping Twisted Sister produce their
He
second album.
promoted Twisted
That's
Sister.
right.
He told me those stories. So Jason signed me. Jason's responsible for any, listen, let's put it this way. We could have signed with anybody we wanted to. At that time, it was a bidding war. We signed with Jason because he promised us
He was the guy back then.
the most, and he was the guy back then, and he became a very dear friend. Unfortunately, he ended up being not, he was disappointing in the end. And anybody that's worked with Jason will tell you that. I'm sorry. Jason is all hat and no cattle. He had a lot of power, don't get me wrong, that's real, but he was full of shit, and he acted like he cared about people that he didn't really care about. So I'm appreciative of what he did, but he had no follow through, and he had no loyalty, and he's sort of he's
Welcome
a
to
worm.
show
He's
business.
a worm. I mean, he's a fucking worm. So whatever. I never got dropped from my record label. I left my record label. I didn't want to be signed anymore. I was done. It's a very rare story. Most people get dropped. I did not get dropped. But when Leor and all those guys came in, Leor was the head of Def Jam. His name is being mentioned a lot. These guys, Leor worked for Mossad. He was an Israeli soldier. There are a lot of government ties with a lot of these executives. And I'm not trying to say that I know anything that I don't know. And I'm not making any claims that I can't back up.
Name names.
I really can't at the moment. But what I will say is this: there is a lot of talk about the fact that Diddy was very similar to Epstein in that he was in a position to trap people and tape people and put them in compromising positions so that
100%.
he could use them as
100%.
leverage. Because here's what we have to understand.
That's an excellent comparison.
Right? So here's what we have to understand. The reason that, when we'll go back to my earlier statement, the reason that so many people in mainstream music, film, all of these rock stars are all defending the government and are all, they literally all believe the exact same thing, which why does nobody find that odd? These are mouthpieces for the agenda, right? Whatever the agenda is. So in order for you to further the agenda, we need to know that you're controllable. We can't give you a ton of power where hundreds of millions of people are going to listen to every single word you say unless we know that you're going to say what we want you to say. We need to know that we can control what you say, or else you're going to have too much power. So what they started to do is, over the years, they started to manipulate and control who's going to be famous and who's not. And they do that by figuring out who's going to play ball. Travis Kelce and what the hell is her name?
Taylor Swift.
Thank you.
How can you forget that?
Because I don't care about her. But the couple, suddenly he's promoting the vaccine. I mean, do you think that that's a coincidence? Like, it's not a coincidence.
No, he's a sellout.
They are shills.
And he already had money, so why did he have to sell out?
Because they are they're planted, right? They're infiltrators. They are supposed to be influencing the proletariat. They're influencing the masses. So they get these people and they say, listen, we're going to let you be huge famous. We're going to let you make billions of dollars. We're going to let you be the biggest thing since sliced bread, but you must further our agenda. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to put you guys together and we're going to fabricate this relationship, and you're going to push the vaccine and you're going to do
you think it's a fake relationship, Cassidy?
100%. As a matter of fact, did you hear about this? The publicist? There was a one sheet that came out from a publicist literally discussing their relationship and how it was going to go, the timeline of it.
I did not hear anything like that.
Yeah, like a month ago that came out. It surprised me not. But at the end of the day,
that's a really elaborate scheme, and I don't get what the payoff would be.
It's more about controlling people. It's less about you almost have to think more macro. We would be too overwhelming as a population. we would overthrow the powers that be because we are more powerful than they are, because there are more of us than there are of them. So what do they need
Well,
to do?
that's what the whole social contract is.
And they
You
need
know,
to
we
control
we we,
us.
we buy into it because government is supposed to do right by us. Once government, screws us over, then we have not only the right but the responsibility of overthrowing that government.
Exactly. But what do? They put people in positions of power to the talking points, all the talking points, so that we all believe
But is
whatever Taylor
Yeah.
Swift wants is what I want. Whatever she says is what I believe. And if
Oh,
you're
that's
going
so
to
weak-minded, though.
right, but that's who we are. That's who we've become. That's who we've become. So you get someone like Diddy, and there are people who believe that Diddy was installed, much like Epstein, that he was given all of that power and all of that money and all of that access to entrap people so that they would play whatever the games were, I don't know what they're up to. I mean,
Cassie, do you think maybe,
trafficking.
hold on, do you think maybe that he kind of enticed or indulged people's decadent side,
Oh,
you
of
know?
course.
So just like Jeffrey Epstein did. And
Of
that's why he
course.
had the free reign. I don't think he was installed. I don't think he was anointed. I think he had that in him.
But
Uh,
why tape everybody?
why did he tape everybody? Protection. To keep, you open up your mouth, we got it on you.
Right.
To protect himself.
Blackmail, ultimately, right?
Exactly.
So I guess the question would ultimately be, what's the blackmail for? Is the blackmail for the government to then say, you're going to push this vaccine or we're going to show that tape?
Well, in Diddy's case, he's not doing it for the government. He's doing it for himself. And he
Right.
played
But
ball
who
with the
does he
government
work
because
for? And what, who
well,
does
he works for himself. Okay, but but I think what he ultimately does, I think he gets in bed with the government because he knows that they have shit on him. So
Right.
if he plays with the powers that be, which is the DNC, okay, who's in power, I think what he winds up doing is like, hey, look, we'll give you as much protection as we can, but right now the shit hit the
So
fan,
like chicken and
and
the
now
egg,
they're
like he
distancing
gets in
themselves from him.
trouble and they say, we're going to leverage you. You're in trouble. So if you do this, we'll keep you out of jail. We'll keep you protected. So it's a little
Exactly.
bit of a back and forth, right?
Exactly.
I
He
totally
has stuff on them. They have stuff on him. I should think Sean is right. He's never going to see a trial. I think if things get too hot and heavy, I think he does kill himself.
Yeah.
He's in the worst fucking jail in New York City.
No, it's bad.
It's a
It's
horrific
bad.
jail. I mean, come on, you're
And
telling
he's
me with
dying to
all
get
that
out of
money,
there, no amount of money, and they won't take it from him. They're like, nope.
there is definitely he's not the mastermind. There's somebody higher up than him.
That's what I think. But that's, what do I know? I have no
100%.
proof of that. But that's what I
There's
think.
definitely
I've been
there's
around long
definitely
enough. When I got into the industry, one of the first things that they started to do, Jason started to do, was put me in contact with politicians. I'd get on the phone with, and it would be weird. He'd be like, get on the phone with this one. And it would be like the governor of the state. And I didn't know why I was talking to him, but we played the DNC. We played the Democratic National Convention the year that Obama did his famous speech before he ran for president. He became famous because he did a famous speech when the Democratic National Convention was in
2004.
Boston.
2004.
We played that convention. So we were already being.
Yeah, that's how he kind of got his
Well,
name.
we were trying to. They were. I mean, listen. If I hadn't walked away, they were trying to make us uber famous. Like we were going to be one of those bands. Like we were on that track. I was being offered all the things. I didn't want it. Ultimately, I walked away from it. But
what year did you walk away from it, Cassidy?
I walked away in 2009.
Oh, wow.
And I say walked away. I walked away from the fame in 2009. I was still in the music business. I wrote for other people. I wrote for Demi Lovato. I wrote for Ellie Goulding. I was like writing for film and television. So I was still in the industry. I wrote with like Max Martin, if anybody knows who that is. So I was still doing it kind of on that level.
Isn't Max Martin on the Islanders?
Max Martin is actually, he's like a big pop songwriter and producer. He's like written like every hit song for all the big pop stars.
So he's not a left wing on the Islanders.
No, he's a Swede.
I'm saying that look, just for Sean's reaction. Just for Sean's reaction, I pushed that.
The whole fucking episode. You went the whole episode. We have like 4 minutes. It's like 4 fucking minutes left. I don't ask for much, dude. I really don't.
I love this guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I left then, but what I was saying more than anything is just to make that like connection is that we were immediately being connected with in politics. Like this was kind of a hand in glove situation. Artists, very famous actors, very famous musicians and artists. Remember Rock the Vote? They
Yeah, of
Mhm.
knew
course. Diddy
us.
was part of Rock the Vote.
Thank
He
you.
was a big part of it to get out the vote.
Yes, he was. Yes, he was. You think he gave a shit
And
about the
recently
vote?
too.
You think he cared about the vote?
Of course not.
Of course not.
He's
Of
being
course.
controlled.
What was in it for him? Right. So it's going to be very interesting to see. Um, Look, I am really happy that young women and men who have been traumatized are able, to speak and to get some justification, and some hopefully some vindication. But I will say this, and I know we don't have that much time left, but there's a lot of things that people are willing to do for fame and for money and for recognition. And I promise you it's not worth it. It really isn't. And if somebody's inviting you to a party, and if you're dressed with and your tits are out and your ass is out, and I'm not putting you down for that, and you don't deserve to be raped for that, I am making myself very clear. Okay. I don't think that you are, but you're going to put yourself in the middle of a party with a bunch of dudes who are very powerful with a lot of money, and you want to be next to fame like that, and you're going to show up dressed like a hoe. I'm just asking you to think better of that. Just think better of that, and to
The law,
take
Cassidy,
power back.
unfortunately, the law of fame, and trust me,
It's
I've
sickening.
been
I walked
exposed to
away
I've
from
been
it. I
exposed
handed
to
it
a
back.
very, very little bit. But when you're on the set of a movie, I was in the movie The Irishman. I don't know if you know that. But when you're on the set of
Mm,
a movie, okay,
congrats. Yeah.
you could see why, like, if if Scorsese or even De Niro came up to me and said, "Hey, Jeff, just the tip," I would say yes. I'm
So
just
many
saying.
people would.
You did it for the guy in catering, Jeff.
I did want steak for lunch that day.
Listen, I'm
This was
sitting.
fun.
Yeah, this was fun. I appreciate it. I mean, I just worry about kids because I understand the lure of fame, and I understand
It
how
sucks.
enticing it is, and how seductive it all is. But it's satanic and it's
Yeah.
I
dark.
worry about Taylor Swift. I worry about Taylor Swift for one reason is because she really has inspired an entire generation of girls to pick up a guitar, to pick up a pen, to start writing,
I know.
and almost want her to not be part of it
I want her to be
because
better than she's being.
You want none of these people, like Cassie said at the very beginning when I came on, you want none of these people to be part of it. You want them to be artists. You don't want them to be
Yeah.
politicians.
I want them to be real. I want them to tell the truth. I just want them to stop. It's like, listen, not for nothing. Like, I'm not even trying to be hard on Kamala, but she's not qualified. She just isn't. And for anybody to act like she is, it's like, what are you doing? You are misleading an entire community of people who look at you and think that you're brilliant and amazing. And you're telling people to get the vaccine and you're telling people to vote for Kamala, and maybe there's not, maybe you don't like Trump, and I get that, and maybe he doesn't feel like a better alternative for you, but I just think that there are that then say nothing rather than encourage people for whatever your agenda is to do the wrong thing. And I think that they're using their power in the wrong way. And I agree with you, Sean. I think it's amazing. She plays guitar and she sings her songs and she's written some great songs, and I want to see young girls do that. But I don't like that I always have to feel like, yeah, but she's a Democrat and we have to know who she's voting for. And we have to know what her social issues are about. And she has to support abortion, and she has to support transing kids, and she has to support, or else we hate her. And can't they just say nothing?
What was Tom Petty? Was he a Democrat or a Republican? What was
What about it? Right.
what is Jeff Flynn? Back in the
Thank
day,
you.
no
What
one
about
gave a
Led
shit.
Zeppelin? What about Led Zeppelin? What were
Yeah.
they?
Yeah, I didn't sit there before an election and say, you know
What did
what
Led
does Jimmy
Zeppelin think
Page
about gay
think?
marriage? I'm just curious.
Exactly.
Did
You
they
know,
ever talk about it?
no,
nope.
And
no.
did you ever see photographs of him like with his kids having breakfast at his house, or like did you ever know
But
anything
you know what?
about
Age of social media changed all that. It
it?
didn't
Just
change things for
ruined
the better.
it. It ruined it. I mean, our rock
Yeah,
stars used to have mystery, and there's no mystery anymore.
exactly. Let me ask you something before we wrap this up. Do you like Setlist FM?
I don't know if I'm familiar with that. What is that?
So if you're going to a concert, you type in,
Oh,
Bruce
I know.
Springsteen
And they tell you what the set list is going to be.
from
Yeah.
the night before, whatever. Yeah.
Like, so you're talking about mystery. Like, remember, like the day, like you wouldn't know what the next song was going to be.
Yeah,
Now
right.
you know
Everybody
exactly
tells
what's going to
you.
happen.
Yeah, no, I think I was always of the belief, and I think it's part of what really pushed me away from the industry when we were expected to be 24/7 accessible to our audience. Um, I lost interest in that. I really, for me, perfect example. I've had a million people that I love, and my music tastes are eclectic and they're all over the place. But the one thing that I can tell you for sure is that when I was a kid, I loved Eddie Vedder. Okay. I loved Pearl Jam. I loved Eddie Vedder. I didn't know anything about Eddie Vedder. You want to know what I knew about Eddie Vedder? When the albums came out. And I would read the liner notes and I would
Me,
read the
me
lyrics.
too.
He did maybe one interview where he said 4 words because he was so shy. I lived for those moments and I would soak it. I didn't need to know what his girlfriend's name was or what his parents' names were, or what he ate for breakfast or what he believed in or who he was voting for. I didn't give a shit. I didn't want to know. There was something mysterious and beautiful about it. And I miss that. I miss the mystique. I miss the mystique. I think that it's just too revealing, way too much. And I also think that it's suspicious to me that every single person in mainstream music and film believe the exact same thing politically. I find that very hard to believe. I think that's very strange.
It's a good segment to wrap this up with there,
Yeah.
Shawnee boy.
I
You know,
want Cassie to come back on. We didn't talk
100%.
about it. Mention it real quick. She is writing her book.
Yeah,
She is almost finished writing her book.
I
It'll
am.
be hopefully coming out at the end of the year, I think you said,
Definitely,
correct?
definitely in the new year for sure.
So once that drops, you let me know. We'll plug it, and then we'll have you back on, and then
Thank
we'll
you.
talk about UFOs and all kinds of other
Yeah,
conspiracy theories.
Yes, let's do it.
yeah, it won't be Who's Your Band. It's going to be conspiracy theories with
What's
Sean and
what's your
Cassidy.
conspiracy?
There we go. There we go.
Thank you so much. It's so good to see both of you. I'm
Thank
thrilled to see that you guys are still going strong. And
you. On that.
yeah, thank you. And let me know when it drops. I'll promote the episode.
All right,
We'll do.
guys. Sean,
Thank
wrap us up,
you.
baby. Wrap us up, my friend. Wrap us up.
Let's go to laughingstockcc.com, which is Jeffrey's Comedy Club out in Grantville, Pennsylvania. He is the proud owner of it. It's a great club. Go to that, check out us on our social media, and hit subscribe on YouTube. And hit subscribe on my YouTube page because that's where my special Salty will be coming out as soon as I
When is
send
that
it.
dropping?
I'm going to get it to our producer sometime this week, and I'm thinking by Christmas, maybe a little bit after. Have a great night.
All
Take care,
right.
everybody. Thanks,
Good to
Cassidy.
see you guys. Thank you so much. This was so fun.
It's always our pleasure. Take care, guys.
Take care, babes. Bye.